What's up, guys? Welcome to the Peer Review Podcast. My name is Kaleb Davis.
And my name is Brett Sherwood, and we have some notes.
In the past few weeks, we worked to put together a top 10 list for teams that we think will have the best chance to win the Lombardi Trophy for the 2024-2025 NFL season. I'm going to hand it over to Brett to give a further explanation on our list and the criteria that we followed.
Yeah, so for this week, we really just wanted to base it off of additions and losses over the offseason, of their key impact players, as well as their past success in the playoffs in the regular season, the eye test of just, overall skill level of the talent that we see in the team, their star players, and statistics from previous seasons. So, hey, we might ruffle some feathers. Some people might agree, but with that being said, I hope it sparks some conversation in the comments based on our takes today. And with that being said, let's get into it, Kaleb.
Okay, so to start us off, for my number 10, I have, drumroll please, I have the Dallas Cowboys. And for starters, I'm going to kind of paint my case on why I have them here. And kind of at the end, I'm going to give a prediction on how I think their season is going to go and their record at the end of the season. So, to start off, I know the Cowboys are kind of known for their regular season success. They always have these great regular seasons, but they typically flame out in the postseason behind the helm of their QB, Dak Prescott. And I just want to say, I don't think that past performance is always a great indicator of future performance. I'm going to give them another chance. I think this is Dak's really his last year, because I don't want to say his last year, but they have to make a decision after this season as to whether or not they're going to extend him, and I think this season is going to tell a lot. The Cowboys have the talent to be one of the top dogs in the NFC East again, in my opinion. Like last season, they had 9 All-Pro selections, and they're bringing back 8 of those 9 players. So I think there's no reason why they don't have the capability of making it all the way. I think they still have some questions as it pertains to their offense, like who's going to start at running back, how are you going to replace Tyron Smith, and they still have those contract extension and that feud going on with Jerry Jones between like CeeDee Lamb. So they still got to figure that out, but I think they're still going to be a top 10 team in the NFL, and I don't know. I have faith this year. I wouldn't put all my eggs in their basket, but I have faith. I'm predicting another good season from them, and I think they're going to finish behind the Eagles with about 10 to 11 wins. So that's kind of my perspective on the Cowboys this season and my number 10 for the list. So now I'm going to hand it over to Brett to kind of touch on his number 10.
Yeah, for sure. So I wanted, I always like to mix it up a little bit, you know what I'm saying? I wanted to throw a curveball in here at my number 10. And give y'all kind of like a dark horse candidate, you know what I'm saying? So I went with the Atlanta Falcons, okay?
Oh, wow.
I know this might be really controversial, but hear me out. I really think they're going to take a big jump this year. And I think Kirk Cousins is going to finally be the answer that they've been seeking over the past couple of years at QB. They've had Desmond Ritter and Taylor Heineke at the helm for them for the past couple of years, and really just haven't been able to get it done consistently because, let's be real. Both of those guys, sadly, aren't NFL quality starters for you for the foreseeable future. So I think that by going out and getting somebody proven, that automatically makes like their offense that much better, and they have a new head coach. And because Arthur Smith wasn't getting it done last year either, and I think a lot of the reason that Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson weren't getting the success that people expected them to have early on in their careers was because of the schemes, and like I feel like that he just didn't really know how to utilize his talent correctly. And I think that since 2020, only 2 quarterbacks actually have thrown for more touchdowns to Kirk Cousins. Fun fact: Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. And I think he's really going to thrive off like the QB. The play action pass with Bijan Robinson. People said that he had like a disappointing season last year, but again, yeah, he only had like 976 yards or something like that. But he averaged 4.6 yards a carry, and I think that like when you watch him play, like his talent level wasn't indicative of like how many times he was getting the ball. I think he should have gotten the ball a lot more than he did, and I think that again, Kirk Cousins will be a lot better at utilizing Kyle Pitts at tight end because he's had previous success in a connection with his tight ends. Like when you look at T.J. Hawkinson and how good he made him look with Minnesota, I think that he's going to be a good target for him on offense. And also, I think their X factor now is Darnell Mooney because they acquired him from the Bears, and yeah, he came off two like disappointing seasons, but you had to look at who he had at QB, right? He was dealing with old man Nick Foles and Justin Fields and Mitch Trubisky, like. So I think if those guys are throwing to you, that's really not an indicator of like your talent level. And I really think that he can bounce back and have like a 2021 level performance that we've seen from him before. I mean, he's a great route runner. He has good hands, good speed. He attacks at the high point of the ball. Like I think that he is a great number 2 for them next to Drake London. And I think that on paper, like their offense has the capability to at least make them a contender for a wild card spot, in my opinion. And I really think that, like with that being said, like I'm really excited to see what they can do. And I think that I'm pretty high on them just because the NFL is weird. I feel like things can change very quickly within like the span of like a year or two, and I think that they're definitely going to have like at minimum a winning record this year because they weren't really even like that bad like everywhere else besides QB play like last year. That's really what kind of held them back. So I think that once they have that missing piece, I think that they can do something. So we'll see.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I'm gonna lead into my number 9. I have the Green Bay Packers. I just want to start off by saying I'm a huge Jordan Love fan. Me and Brett had discussions about our top 5 QBs earlier in the summer, and he wasn't on my list, but I'm just a fan. We kind of did a deep dive because he got his contract extension. He signed his max contract extension for 4 years, $220 million, with that $75 million signing bonus earlier this summer, and I think it's well deserved. He had an amazing second half to the season last year. He led the youngest offense to the most passing and touchdown yards, which is pretty impressive. Just being that they're the youngest offense, that takes leadership, and I think that he definitely took some notes and some pointers from Aaron Rodgers as sort of his protege. But now, as one of the league's highest paid QBs, the pressure's on. Like, he has to produce this season, and I think that he will. They still have some questions about their offensive line, like heading into the season, but I think they're going to be solid. I think they're going to see improvement to their defense. They got a new defensive coordinator in Jeff Hafley, and he's kind of known for his development of players and just versatility of his schemes and coverages. So I'm excited to see what he kind of throws in with them and how he mixes things up. They also signed Xavier McKinney, and they drafted 3 safeties in the 2nd, 4th, and 5th rounds. So they're adding depth to their defense and especially to the safety position, which I think is only going to help them in the long run. And then I think the Packers are also going to be looking at a bounce back year from the league's highest paid corner. Jair Alexander, he wasn't terrible last season, but he had a pretty underwhelming season by his means, especially because he is the highest paid. So I'm looking for him to have a bounce back year. I'm looking for the Packers to finish a lot better, but I think they're still going to finish behind the Lions in the NFC North. But I think they're going to end the season with about 11 to 12 wins, which is definitely a jump and an increase from last year. Last season, they finished around 9-8. But I just see improvements across the board. And I also didn't mention on defense, they have Keyshawn Nixon, and he finished first team All-Pro last year, and it's his 2nd straight year of being All-Pro. So I'm just excited for their defense. And, I'm excited for their defense and just for the season overall.
Most definitely, yeah. I can see that. Obviously, that would make me sad as a diehard Lions fan, but I wish Jordan Love all the best as long as he's not playing us in the regular season or in the divisional round of playoffs. But we'll see how it shakes up for them. Moving on to my number 9, I have the Buffalo Bills. I just felt like I had to put them on here, just because of their ability to consistently go toe-to-toe with the Chiefs, who are, basically, no matter how you swing it, a top 3 team in the NFL, depending on who you are. And, they made it to the divisional round for the past 4 years in a row. So, they're always going to be in the mix in some capacity. Similar to the Cowboys, though, I feel like they've had struggles putting it all together, all at once. But with Josh Allen at the helmet, what he brings in the improvisation game, with his legs, extending the plays, I think that that is enough to definitely win probably 10, 11 games in the regular season. But my only big knock on him and what he's doing with that team is like I feel like their play calling relies on him to basically have the ball in his hands every single play and make every single play, right? And I think that leads to him being pretty careless in the playoffs, and because he feels like he always has to do everything. And I think that when you get to the playoff football, you have to minimize turnovers if you want to be efficient and if you want to close out games. And I think that they always end up he always ends up having a costly pick or a fumble in big moments, and it kind of reminded me of like a NFL version of like prime Westbrook, right? You know what I'm saying? Like we always see him put up insane stats in the regular season and have that success and always make the playoffs, but when it comes to putting it together in the end in the clutch moments, they always have like some sort of mental mistake or error that kind of hurts their team. As big of a fan as a Westbrook fan as I am, I do
Yeah,
have to
no
knack that
disrespect.
for him there. Yeah, no disrespect. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, some people have their strengths and weaknesses, and for me this year, I just really want to see he's my X factor, and I want to see him put it together and make smarter mental decisions when it comes to late game situations, and we'll see how it goes from there. But yeah, I mean, I Josh Allen is going to Josh Allen for me. That team is going to go as far as he's going to take him.
No, that's fair enough. I have the Bills at number 8 on my list. I think they're one of the harder teams to predict, though. They moved on from Stephon Diggs this summer, which I wasn't a huge fan of. So I think they're going to see some regression in their passing game because you're losing an all-pro receiver. But they also lost their center, Mitch Morse, and their safety in Jordan Poyer. However, they took 10 different players in the draft, so it's kind of hinting at a youth movement that's sort of underway. And um, I think the Bills are expecting a big season from their tight end Dalton Kincaid, and I think it's possible. A lot of fantasy sites have him in the top 3 of tight end production next year. So that's very positive. That's a positive projection. And then last season they had the 4th best ranked total offense with 374.5 offensive yards average. So I see them having another successful season. I think their offense is going to be solid. They lost a large portion of their defense this offseason, which is undoubtedly going to show some slippage during the season. But I don't think they'll be as bad. A lot of rankings that I've seen have them out of their top 10, which I don't really agree with. I think Josh Allen is going to be under strong consideration for MVP next season. And I think they're going to finish at the top of the AFC East with the same record as last year, with around 11-6. But I think Josh Allen's going to be in the MVP conversation for sure.
That's valid. Do you think at all that he's going to struggle like with that new wide receiver core, or how do you think that like would shake up for him? Because I know he doesn't have Gabe Davis there either anymore. So like I don't know if like it's going to be like an adjustment for him losing his number one, and having to deal with like some younger guys in the room. And how do you think that chemistry could mesh?
Yeah, no, I definitely think there's going to be like some growing pains, especially at the beginning of the season because it's a new set. Like you're all learning to play together again. But I think by the end of the year, or even I think sooner than then, like maybe by week 4, week 5, they'll be a lot more accustomed to each other, and like their chemistry will be able to, kind of develop and unfold a lot more. So
Most
I
definitely.
don't see it being that big of an issue.
I like the Keon Coleman pickup too. Out of FSU, I think he had a really good last season. Um, you know, with FSU, and then even at Michigan State, he was a Michigan State guy too before that. And big, big body threat in the red zone, 6'4". I think Josh Allen's gonna have a fun time with that. So I think, I think you're right. I think he'll find a way to mesh with them and get going as the season progresses.
How many wins do you see them having?
I would agree with around 10 or 11. I think that's like their ceiling though, in my opinion. I think that like if it doesn't mesh well, then yeah, they might be sitting at like 8 or 9. But I don't think they're gonna like be anywhere less than that. And I think that they'll probably still have a wild card spot in the AFC, but we'll see. Moving on to my number 8, I have the Miami Dolphins, and I gotta say for them, I think my X factor is that they have a really good coach in Mike McDaniel, and what he brings is a part of this like new era of coaching. And I know that I think for me it's refreshing compared to the NBA when you see that the NFL is like kind of moving away from the good old boys club, and like actually getting like new blood and like younger guys that have like proven track records. Sorry, excuse me, younger guys that are technically unproven but show potential that they want to groom into their next head coach. And so you have a lot of guys really from the Mike Shanahan coaching tree. To be honest, like Sean McVay, obviously his son, Kyle Shanahan, Matt LaFleur, and now Mike McDaniel. So shout out to him. Apparently, whatever he's doing behind the scenes is working a lot to develop NFL head coaching talent. But I see the memes how quirky he is or whatever, but you can tell he's a genius. I mean, he's a wide receiver at Yale, and I'm pretty sure they prioritize their academics over their athletic ability in that kind of setting. But really, I bring that up because you can see the connection that he has with Tua and like what he's able to get out of him because they have like such a good relationship. And I think it's really cool to see. Obviously, Tyreek Hill is still like a top 2-3 wide receiver in the league, and I think he's going to have a pretty good year this year, barring any like setbacks in his personal life. We won't get into that. And yeah, they still got like the fastest running back in the league, Raheem Mostert. You know what I'm saying? My only gripe on them is like Jalen Ramsey's aging. They're going to have to do something about their CB room soon and try to address that. And also, they seem to always struggle whenever they have to play outdoors in inclement weather. So obviously, those late December, January games, February games, when you're competing for the Lombardi Trophy, you're going to have to play at Arrowhead, and that's outside, and it's usually like extremely cold. And that's kind of what happened to them this year. So it's like I don't exactly know how they can get over like the environmental hump and try to play better in inclement weather, but I really think that they struggled a lot in that game because it forced them to have to like basically rely on the ground game, which isn't as strong. But I do still see a path for them to have some playoff success just because of how high octane offense, their high speed, high octane offense that they got going on over there. I think that they can be good. I don't really know if Odell is going to do much though. I know that they did acquire him, but it seems like he is having a lot of injury setbacks lately in his career. I'm a huge Odell fan, but I don't think that. I really think, sadly, that the Rams run when they won the Super Bowl was kind of the last impactful season that you're going to really see out of him as like as number 2. I think maybe if he's like your third guy, he could have like a decent year. We'll see how it shakes up, but yeah, it's kind of funny. They kind of have like a little like big three, I guess, going on over there. But like it's one of those like big threes where like they say it's like a big three, but like it on paper, but like it's like all the guys are out their prime. It's like when the Lakers had like Dwight Howard and like Steve Nash and Kobe and all that stuff. But yeah, but with that being said, I still think that they're gonna like be at least like again within my top 10 at sitting number 8. So we'll see how that shakes up for them.
I consider having the Dolphins on my list. Like they were probably, I'd say they were an honorable mention. I would have had them over the Cowboys, but the decision kind of came down to the QB for me. I don't think Tua is I think he's a good QB, but he's not a great QB. And that's kind of just what it came down to for me in terms of I kind of compare him to Dak, and Dak has his struggles in the postseason, but he finished second team All Pro last season, and I still think he's a better QB than Tua in my opinion. So that's kind of what it came down to.
That's valid.
But that's a solid pick. Moving on to my number 7, I have the Bengals. Last season, Joe Burrow, he tore his ACL and his MCL, so the Bengals ended up missing the playoffs, and they finished bottom of the AFC North. But I just think that he's going to come back better and at full strength. I think he's going to come back, and I think he's going to have an impactful season. I think he's going to also finish in the top 5 in the MVP conversation. Last season, the Bengals' run game was not that great, and their offensive line struggled. They were 26th in the league by the end of the season, but I think that having him back is going to give them a little bit of, because, when you're missing your QB, I'm not saying they weren't playing as hard, but when you have your star QB back, I think it's going to help you and give you a lot more will, and you're going to be able to play harder, It's going to reinvigorate them a bit. I think the Bengals defense will also see a major improvement. They added safety Geno Stone, and they re-signed Von Bell. When last year the Bengals ranked last in yards allowed per play at 6.6 and 6.0, excuse me, and 25th in points allowed per drive. Um, they also have Jamar Chase on offense, and they're trying to figure out the new deal with him. So he's kind of, or I guess we're gonna have to wait and see how far he's willing to go with kind of waiting out and not practicing. But he has produced, and I think they should pay the man.
I agree.
They also just have a solid receiver core. They have T. Higgins, who I don't think they're gonna extend him because they haven't given him an extension thus far. But it looks like he's just gonna play out the season. And then they also have Andre. I'm not gonna try and pronounce his last name, but he's had a solid training camp based on the news that I've acquired, and it's looking like he's gonna possibly be that third receiver for them. So they have some potential, and they have some positive outlook. So I'm looking for the Bengals to have an elite offense this season. I think Joe Burrow just being back, I'm a big fan of him, and I think he's just gonna propel them. And he said he's gonna be ready for Week 1, so I'm excited to see how he's gonna look. And the AFC North is going to be brutal this year. Like, you have the Ravens, you have the Browns, the Steelers. They're all looking very formidable. But I think they're going to win about 10 games and finish around like 10-7, I'd say.
Oh, sorry, I think I lost you for a second.
I think I'll just pick back up. I'm looking for them to have an elite season. Like I said, Joe said he's going to be ready for Week 1. I mentioned that the AFC North is going to be brutal because you have the Ravens, you have the Browns, you have the Steelers, and they're all looking very, very formidable. So I kind of finished it off. I think they're going to end up with about 10 wins.
For sure. No, I can see that. I had them on my list, but we'll get there. So for me, actually, my number 7 is the Philadelphia Eagles. So I know what you all are thinking.
Wow.
Hold on. Didn't the Eagles like literally melt down last year and lose like 5 games in a row? Yes, they did. But you also had to acknowledge they had like a lot of injuries and also happened during the toughest run of their schedule. And they played literally the Cowboys, the Chiefs, the Bills, the 49ers, and the Cowboys again, all in consecutive weeks, like right at the end of the season when they're all already, obviously, weathering the storm like that. Like that was insane. So. I think playing all like top 5 to 10ish teams like back to back like that is gonna take a lot out of you. And but over the offseason, they retooled their secondary. They acquired C.J. Gardner-Johnson from the Lions, which makes me very sad. He will be missed, and his tenaciousness. He was always really funny too, and like he always I feel like he brought like a fire to the defense. But personal feelings aside, he's gonna be a great addition for them. And he actually boomeranged. He was on the Eagles, and they went to the Lions for like a year, and they came back. But then they drafted Cooper DeJean out of Iowa and Quinyon Mitchell out of Toledo. And he's like a premier cornerback with size that's going to be able to match up well with any big body receivers on the other side. So I think that between those like 3 guys in their secondary, they're going to be, in my opinion, at least like a top 10 to 15 secondary in the league now, which is like much needed jump from last year because the pass defense last year was terrible. And retooling that kind of just brings back the leadership and athletes into that defense that I think are going to help a lot. And also, hopefully, they don't let Matt Patricia keep calling their acting as their defensive coordinator, because I also think that's why they kind of self-imploded last year. Because honestly, I don't even know why the guy's still in the league after his debacle as the Lions head coach. But that's like a whole other like rant. I won't get into that. But with that being said, I think that the Eagles still have enough talent on offense. Obviously, they still have Jalen Hurts, and I think that he's going to come back and have a great season again as a dual threat QB in this league. And I also think that you still got AJ Brown, you still got the Slim Reaper. You still got all those guys in his wide receiver core. And DeAndre Swift had a pretty good season last year, too. So I don't see any reason why they can't make any noise in the NFC. So we'll see how that shakes up for them. But I think that they are going to be a pretty good team this year. So, yeah.
It's a fair pick. You have them a little lower than I do, but we'll get to that in the future. For my number 6, though, I have the Texans. And I just want to start off by saying I know the Texans lost a lot of key players in free agency, but I think they still had a successful offseason. I think their additions essentially offset the losses that they faced. This summer they added 3 potential starters to their defense, and I think this year they're going to have an awesome defense. They have solid corners, and then they have an excellent core of DNs. Last season they finished top 10 in rushing defense, and I see that continuing. And they also have that beast, Will Anderson Jr. Last season he won Defensive Rookie of the Year, and I don't know. I believe in them. I believe in C.J. Stroud. Like we saw what he did just as a rookie, propelling that offense, and they weren't on a lot of people's radars last season. But I think this year people are going to be a little bit more prepared for them. And I know people have mentioned C.J. going through a sophomore slump, but I don't think that's going to be as apparent and as blatant as people are kind of making it to be. I don't think he's going to struggle that much. And like I said, we know their offense is going to be great under C.J. Stroud, and they added weapons for him. They got Stephon Diggs this offseason, who is only going to add to their receiving core and their passing game. And then they also added Joe Mixon. And I like him because he's kind of just an all-around running back. Like, he can block, he can catch, he can run the ball. Like, he just adds another level of versatility to their offense. So I think it's almost a given that they're going to win their division this year.
And they added Daniel Hunter too as another edge rusher along Will Anderson, like you said. Like he's going to be really good. Like their D line's just going to be like insane.
I know they made just a lot of additions this summer, and I think it kind of some of them kind of flew under the radar. But like I said, I think they're going to finish at the top of the division, and I think they'll have about 2 more wins this season, and which is going to end up with they'll be around 11 to 12 wins, I'd say. Maybe 13 as their ceiling, but I have high hopes for them this season.
I agree. And I meant to add, actually, I had a question for you about the Bengals. Do you think Lions acquired DJ Reader and he was like their big run stuffer presence as a D tackle in the middle? Do you think that will cause any issues for them in their defense, or?
I don't know who they replaced him with, so I'm gonna say yes, just off the fact that when you're losing someone of his caliber and losing that talent, but I don't think it's gonna derail their season or anything, nothing like that. But I think it'll cause issues here and there.
For sure, yeah. And yeah, so actually on my number 6, I have the Bengals. So I mean, for most of the reasons that Kaleb had already mentioned, right? You got Joe Burrow back, right? And he was your star quarterback when he was healthy the season before last. He threw for 35 touchdowns and only 12 picks. Great, amazing talent, top 5 QB in the league, right? And you still have T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, at least for this year, in that wide receiver core. And T. Higgins really doesn't get enough credit, in my opinion. I think that he's the best number 2 wide receiver in the league. One of them, if not the, in my opinion, just because, you look at some of his catches, man. You see last year in 2023, that catch he had against the Vikings where he was on a sideline. He high-pointed that thing, and then he was facing the sideline, high pointed the ball, and then swung his arm over while he was falling out of bounds to get it across the pylon. I had never seen anything like that. That is definitely wide receiver 1 star level stuff in my opinion. The body control, the footwork, and I really think that they should. I am kind of sad they're not re-signing him, but if they're not going to make it a priority, I mean, there's definitely somebody that's going to go out there and get him, and he's going to be a really good contributor to the offense. But with that being said, like Kaleb had said already, I mean, the offensive line was a big reason that they struggled last year, obviously losing their QB. They ranked like you said, they ended the season ranked 26th in PFF, but I think that a lot of that was due to because, like you said, they weren't playing probably as hard, sadly, for their backup QB as they were because they knew it's they're kind of just prepping for next season at that point. I mean, they're not going to say that, but
which I know, but it makes you understand
exactly.
it.
And I mean, I do like the pickups to address their tackle position. They got Georgia's Marius Mims in the first round, and they signed Trent Brown as well. So hopefully those 2 guys are able to bolster the edges and keep the QB's Joe Burrow's blindside protected. So yeah, I mean, I think they give him time to make his reads and be productive this year. I'm confident in their offense, and I think that they'll have a formidable defense at least to, again, like you said, carry them to about 10 to 11 wins. But we'll see how it shakes up for them.
Okay, well, that kind of rounds out our list. For today. We're splitting it up in between. We're gonna do 5 today, and then 5 in our next edition. But overall, I like your list. I think it's pretty solid. I'm still a little skeptical about that Dolphins pick, but the season will tell us. But yeah, I'm gonna hand it over to you to kind of wrap us up.
Yeah, for sure. I want to just thank you all for tuning into the Peer Review podcast today, and we are very excited to have you join us. And thank you again for supporting us. It means a lot to both me and Caleb, and we hope you continue with us on our journey.
Yes, and please make sure to share the podcast with your friends and family, as well as follow us on X at peer_review_pod and on TikTok at peer review podcast to stay up to date with the latest episodes, information, and releases, and just to support us and kind of start that community. But with that being said, this is the Peer Review signing off.